We're asked to graph two periods of this function f of x here at the top of the screen. So before we try to graph this function, let's look at this function. We should have in mind the basics of how sine and cosine are graphed. Sine starts at the origin, if it's just sine of x, and rises to the peak of the amplitude to 1, then down to -1, and then it comes back to y equals 0, to where the origin is on the x-axis. Cosine actually doesn't start at the origin. Cosine starts at the peak of your amplitude, then it starts doing its fluctuation. So cosine goes down to the bottom of the amplitude, then back up to 1, and then that's when it starts repeating itself at x equals 2 pi. So cosine has a period of 2 pi. This one has a different period though, because the period, just in case this is the first time you're hearing it or need a reminder, the period is how long it takes for a function to start repeating itself. So the period of sine and cosine follow this formula. It's 2 pi divided by the absolute value of b, where b is just the number that's next to x, the coefficient of x. So in this case, the period of our function, it's 2 pi divided by our 4, and the absolute value of 4 is just 4. So simplifying that a bit, the period is pi over 2. That means instead of repeating itself at 2 pi, it's going to repeat itself way sooner at pi over 2. So for this function, the amplitude hasn't been changed because you have to multiply cosine by something in order to make the amplitude be something different than 1. So we know it's going to start at 1, just like this function did, and it's going to go down to -1. But it needs to start repeating itself by the time we get to pi over 2. So that means it's going to be a quick fluctuation. Going to go down to -1, and then I got to come back to the top to start a new cycle by the time we get to pi over 2. And then we can do it again. Another pi over, if you do pi over 2 plus pi over 2, then you got 1 whole pi. That means we need to repeat ourselves after 1 pi. So we need to be back to the top by the time we reach pi. So that's 2 full periods of the function f(x) equals cosine 4 of x. Cosine 4 times x. I think that's it. So you'll want to select the graph that looks like this one here. And obviously you'll have something slightly different, so you'll want to repeat these same types of steps. If you have sine, just remember sine starts at the origin, sine of x. This graph starts at the origin, hits the peak, then goes down to the bottom, and then it repeats itself by the time you get to 2 pi. So you have to make the same type of calculation for the period if it's not just sine of x, if it's like sine of 2x. Okay, so the amplitude is 1 for our function because the number attached to cosine is 1. And the period, we already calculated that up here, it's pi over 2. So when you type this in, you're going to want to type capital, oh come on, well let me type anywhere there, capital P, lowercase I, and then the division symbol 2. So that's how you type this answer in so that Mobius is happy. Let me see if I can move it up there. Oh, I can't. Okay, so this is what you would type in for your period.